Hey everybody, I'm Tall Slash, and I'll be honest, while I love the blue blur as much as some of you all do, personally I think it's important to take a look at something's flaws to better help it improve in the future. I think this is also the reason why Sonic Mania did so well. It definitely took notes on the do's and don'ts of Sonic, and today we're looking at some of those don'ts in the top 5 worst classic Sonic stages, a counterpart to my other video which should have released alongside this one, the top 10 best Sonic stages. So after you're done watching this one, you can head over to that one to see which level I personally thought was the best. And to make this video a bit cooler, I've invited TetraBitGaming to help me get through this list.
Hey, what's up everybody?
Also, before we begin, I want to give a clear disclaimer that yes, this is an opinionated list, however, things that will be taken into account are fatal design flaws within the stage, and not personal experience. You might love every single level I'm at a roast, and if so, please be civil when tearing me apart in the comments. All jokes aside, the only rule is that only Sonic the Hedgehog through Sonic and Knuckles alongside Mania and CD will be counted, so without further wait, why don't we jump right into the video. Number 5. Marble Garden Zone. This zone, while definitely not the worst, isn't very good from a design standpoint. It starts off with a pretty cool downwards hill where you get a crap ton of speed, but after that the quality of the level just starts to go down a little bit. The main issue about this stage is the lack of speed in a game where the physics are built around going fast. For one, the physical level design is flawed as there's an overabundance of upward slopes followed by tar and spinning platforms, not really giving the player a chance to build speed. It's a bit hard to reward proper platforming when the entire stage is one big platforming section. To make matters worse, these spinning tops which are required to navigate the level are your only form of speed, and the ones that start off straightforward are incredibly inaccurate as moving forward builds height as well as speed, but to a point where you have to literally run backwards in order to avoid getting crushed by the stage. All of these things, plus a fair few leaps of faith from the spikes, are why Marble Garden Zone is inherently not a good stage.
In Sonic 2, Casino Night Zone was a pretty good level, and if you've watched the counterpart to this video, you might see it appear once. So obviously a successor to it can only improve, right? If it were possible, this first act of Carnival Night Zone goes backwards on pretty much every good thing about Casino Night Zone. Instead of going through ring lottery machines and using momentum to gain height and reach new sections of the stage, there's the infamous red barrel and its moving counterparts, which are known to be awful to control and pretty much the bane of every player's existence who hasn't read the manual first. Not only are the gimmicks in the stage awful, but the level design is extremely confusing, having multiple paths that either just loop or take you back to where you started. Or worst of all, an area so similar to the previous one that it feels like no progress has been made whatsoever. From bad gimmicks to confusing level design to random speed traps and death traps in the midst of the level, Carnival Night Zone Act 1 is flawed no matter how you slice it. Act 2 is a bit better and it's a little more linear and has less barrels and other dumb mechanics, but because of Act 1's abundance of these things, it's definitely one of the hardest stages in the game for all of the wrong reasons.
Number 3. Labyrinth Zone. So, you have a game where a blue hedgehog runs around super quickly through loops and is sent flying off of ramps and platforms, all in front of bright neon colors, and what does Sonic the Hedgehog give us? Labyrinth Zone. There are zero redeeming qualities about this level in terms of literally anything. To start off, this is a painfully slow water level where air bubbles are so scarce that even missing just one means losing a life, as you'll probably drown waiting for the next one. In fact, I don't even know how they did it, but the way these bubbles spawn is actually slower than in the rest of the games. But it goes far worse than just being a water level. The zone's main enemies are built around popping out of the ground with little to no warning, adding plenty of seemingly random and unavoidable deaths into the mixture. Coupled with terrible water physics, and there's also a lot of moving platforms, and a lot of waiting, which we covered earlier, doesn't exactly go well with water levels. That aside, Labyrinth Zone is a bad level from every angle. It uses cheap enemy placements, it's a water level, it's slow, it's a water level, and the design is extremely finicky and unrewarding for the random and reasonless difficulty that it has. This is probably the reason why Labyrinth Zone has never reappeared, and will most likely stay that way.
Metropolis Zone. Hands down the most difficult zone in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and one that many people could go without. Metropolis Zone is a pretty bad stage and all due to two crucial design flaws. Number 1, enemy placement. Unless you have prior knowledge of this level's layout, you are definitely going to take damage, and that's because of dumb areas that Badniks are placed. These screws, which require Sonic to run at top speeds, are set in a straight path up, and are required to progress through each act of this zone. The only issue is the fact that these starfish are placed in a position where you will for sure get hit if you're moving up the screw at the set speed the game gives you. So why don't you just try to jump off? Well, you could do that and risk falling into a death trap or having to restart the section over again if that's your style. There's also the second major problem with this level, and that's just the way the stage is set up. There's so many punishing areas with so little rewarding areas. Going too high on the screw? Lose a life. Falling off this platform which has spikes coming out of it? Lose a life. Not watching where you're going? Crab hits you and you die. This level just has everything trying to kill you in every area possible because of cheap placements and instant punishment for even the slightest mistake. All of this creates a weird sort of artificial difficulty, and for 3 acts as well. Metropolis Zone is hands down one of the zones in Sonic with the cheapest difficulties and probably the most random deaths.
Number 1, Wacky Workbench Zone. I'm not gonna lie, this zone felt really ambitious to me and had some cool ideas, but the way they're executed is so awful that Wacky Workbench Zone for me is the worst zone in the classic franchise. The main mechanic of this stage involves bouncing on a toggling floor up to constantly moving spinning platforms which are incredibly hard to land on. Paired with enemies that spontaneously appear, a constantly toggling electrical grid, random ice beams, more electric grids, and you have a nightmare of bad level design. The bouncing floor constantly flings you up into random obstacles like the electrical grid, which are nearly impossible to avoid. That, plus the fact that the stage has no general direction and a very confusing layout, is what makes this one really unbearable to play. It's not even the rest of the mechanics are bad either, except for the bouncing floor, that one can die immediately. But the rest of them, they're okay alone. The ice was reused in Mania and Press Garden Zone Act 2, and the grid is fine if you're given enough space and time to maneuver through it. That being said, the way things are set up in the stage, having almost no control over what you get hit by and what you don't get hit by, really just encompasses a stage with good ideas but terrible execution. And sadly, that is why Wacky Workbench Zone from Sonic CD is my personal worst stage in the classic Sonic franchise. Okay, wait, hold your pitchforks, hate comments, and dislikes, because I have got to tell you, making this list was especially hard for me, because I love the classic Sonic games as a whole, but some levels just have too many flaws to be overlooked, so I think it's important to see what makes a bad level bad and what makes a good level good. Speaking of which, I actually did a counterpart to this list, like I said earlier, which involves the top 10 best Sonic levels by design, so you can go check out that one if you want as well. I also want to give a huge shout out to TetraBitGaming for helping me out in narrating some parts of this list. It's honestly really great to get an opportunity to work with a larger creator, and accepting to help with a somewhat controversial video is really honorable. If you love everything I do, you'll love everything he does, so be sure to check out some videos on his channel as well. Anyways, with the usual closer, don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed, or comment if you agreed or disagreed, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that squishy red subscribe button for more. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll be back in a flash.